Hello, everybody, and welcome to the long-awaited 14th episode of Director's Commentary for the Lazarus Expedition. Let's get it started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lazarus Expedition. How are you all doing today?
Everybody's doing good, Neal. But you know who is going to be doing better? You, prospective Patreon viewer, because after the episode, we're going to go to the after show and we're going to talk about our new campaign. And unlike last time,
these after
this one is only going to
shows
be for patrons. So if you want to listen to us talk
are
about
pretty
our new
cool.
campaign, the edition that
Sometimes
we're gonna go with,
there's
all the
not
other
much
stuff,
happening
the
there.
characters,
Sometimes it's a
etc.,
really good
go to
discussion.
patreon.com/saveordie.
The after show, like from a production standpoint, does take a little bit more labor, and everyone is a little bit tired at the end of it. But traditionally, when I run a session or a campaign, like we run the campaign, the session's over, and then everyone just immediately signs off and goes, like, we're all busy with shit, or we're tired or whatever, and then we all go our own ways, and we don't really get much of an after-game recap. It's not like the session ends and then we hang around and chat about the session for 20 minutes or something. So the after shows have actually been a really nice way of like, that was a great session. Let's do the after show, and now we get like a little bit of a chit chat about it. It's sort of like the chit chat show that we used to do once upon a time, but specifically about episodes and right after. We don't do the pre-game banter. We do the post-game banter, which is its own kind of nice. And you know, sometimes the after shows have been a little long. If we manage to keep them down to like 30 minutes, they're pretty good.
Saved items and creatures. I managed to save a horse. We got the horse to shore. We got attacked by little lizard people. The lizard people, we managed to defeat them. We went all along the river. We found the river. We found a crocodile. We avoided the crocodile. The crocodile was scary. We made it to the city. We got into the city. We tried to cross the river. The guy wouldn't let us on the boat. We had to argue with him. He did eventually let us cross after a while. Then we landed in the city. We discovered about slavery. A god came down from the sky. Actually, two, I think. And it was really scary. It was really fucked up. And it kind of messed with us. We all decided that we needed to find a way to get to the next city, and so we carried on down through the river. There was like a couple of adventures. We found this lady we found a priest who wanted us to clear out his temple of this like sorcerer. We killed the sorcerer, or maybe she ran away, I don't remember. But then he's
enunciating so well, you can actually understand what he's saying despite the speed with which he's speaking. It's really good.
We got to a little town. We stopped in the town. They told us about an oasis. We went to the oasis, and like retards, we walked right up to the oasis and got absolutely annihilated by a hydra. And then we left and had lost basically everything. We got lost in the desert, and somehow the guy managed to come back with the horse. We then went on.
I think this originated from like some bet between them to see who could do it faster or well. And you can see Nick is like, damn, he's really doing a good job. Because Nick is our traditional recapper. Potato's just killing it here. But
we argued for like 3 days.
Oh my God, do we still have Peachel's attention?
We eventually went into a valley. We got attacked by spiders. We tried to assault the keep, but we took so long to make the effort that eventually we turned around and rolled a really bad roll and got attacked by Cassie, and 2 of us died. Mooten rolled the god roll, saved the party. Then we went on back to the city. And then we found 2 new characters. We went up through the Badlands, up through the swamp, and that's where we landed here today. We landed in the city. We rested for a week, and then we made our way to the Elven Forest, which is where we are now.
God damn, man.
That was pretty good. That was good.
Inspiration.
1 minute 38.
Yeah, you can take inspiration for that. That was good.
I do not envy physics having to animate all the words
now,
for the YouTube short for that one.
If you run 5e campaigns, you can just give your players inspiration as much as you want because they always forget about it and they never use it. So just keep giving people inspiration. At any time anyone does anything good, just slap them with inspiration because we always forget about it. At least I forget about it, my players forget about it, and then we never use it, and no one ever wants to do it. So if you can just hand out inspiration like candy, I think it might be a better mechanic. I don't run a lot of 5e campaigns these days myself, but when you do, I think the best option is just to throw inspiration everywhere.
We rolled many constitution checks, and eventually Cypher discovered that someone had a mushroom growing out the back of their head. No one else could see it but Cypher until she cut it off, and then we could see the mushroom, and then we cast Cure on a bunch of people, and now a few of us are cured, and we're trying to figure out how do we get everybody cured of the mushroom, because the mushroom can spread still.
Perfect. So that's exactly where we are. They've got these mushrooms.
And then we cast Cure.
And the question is, how diseased are we?
Are going to just defend them and hang out. Then the cleric should have all of her spells and be able to cure the rest of us.
Right. So we're at the edge of the woods near the Great Lake. And the woods are considered like the Elven Woods. And south of the woods is the big Bowden Plain, where these like
horse lords.
So we're just doing a little bit of setting. Reminding, like, we've got a recap of what's happening, but let's get a recap of the location because the Elven Woods are going to play an important part in this. Like, that the reason we distinguish them as the Elven Woods is because they have, like, control and non-elves are not usually let in, and our party is right next to them. So let's just remind everyone of the setup.
God forbid you stray into either realm.
And notice the gentle background music here.
Where you have tucked it away in some woods. The question is, are you
Yes.
going all the way back to the boat, which would be nice because the Great Lake is fresh water. That's a nice water supply. Or are you going to stay sort of away from the lake in hopes that that'll give you a little bit better cover?
I think we want the water, so we're gonna probably camp near the boat. Yeah. Throw up a tiny hut, camp near the boat.
On the way there, I fall back a little bit towards Cassian as we're walking there, and I say,
The choice of where to camp doesn't have a huge impact. It might have some small impact, but more important is getting the players to get into their mindset and get into the decision-making mindset. So we ask them about things that don't necessarily, like, do you want to camp here? You want to camp there? Where do you want to camp? That just gets our players, like, in character, in decision-making mode. It might have some impact, but it's more of like a meta technique.
What's done is done. He's cured now. He wasn't in his right mind. It's not his fault. It was the mushrooms.
You think? I mean, it's affected him quickly.
I think so.
What if he made a deal with that Ood fellow?
Then what's done is done, I would say. If he tries anything else, then we could handle him.
All right, we'll just keep an eye on him, Cassian.
We're good.
Now, I do want to note here that we've got, the Greenzerg, Mr. Mooten dynamic, where the two of them are much closer together in characters, and they're kind of talking about these two separately. And we do sort of have a bit of a party split, right? These two are close and related from a before incident. These two are close and related from a before incident. And this dynamic of like, the party is one group working together, but there's a little bit of distrust between them all is an important mechanic and an important, not mechanic, but feature of this party.
We don't know.
So
Can we get a
Matt
refresher
cured-
on that?
For us to.
Yeah, Matt cured herself, Droll Fraser, and Ethan.
Okay.
Ostigan and...
We're going to skip ahead a little bit.
But I don't know how hilly this location is, but
Pretty
can we
flat.
maybe find... Yeah. So we probably can't find a spot where the hut is maybe at least protected from one or two sides. Are we just always going to be out in the open? Can we look
Well-
around for something like that?
You have some tools, and if you were to use your equipment to remove some bushes, you could engineer the area around you. Like, there's some nice trees there, but you can't put a hut in there because of plant life, but you just rip out or hack apart those bushes, and then you might be able to put a hut there. And since you're going to be here for a little while, you could, like,
I have
chop
something
down
to say.
a couple of things, and you could build, like, a little berm, and you could engineer a protected area.
So what we have going on here is Pichal is looking for some sort of defensive position to set up the hut. And the way he phrased it, actually, let's go back to that question.
Be difficult. Berm.
No. Actually, people closer.
Can we maybe find a spot? I don't know how hilly this location is, but
Pretty
can we maybe
flat.
find? Yeah. So we probably can't find a spot where the hut is maybe at least protected from one or two sides. Are we just always going to be out in the open?
So he's asking about a protected space to put their magic hut so they can rest. And this brings up an ever-present question of how much hand-holding do you do for your players? How much do you ask of them versus how much do you provide them? If your player says, like, is there space around here that I could build a hut? Or I could be in a more protected location, you can just give them an answer, like, yes, there is, or no, there isn't. Or you could give them an answer like I just gave that you heard, where it's like, well, there's not really a place, but you have the tools required that you could do this sort of thing. And this is always a little... I find this a difficult area to navigate, because when your players are like,
Sounds good.
could I make this a safer place? And as a
just
DM, you're
little
like,
bit
yeah, I
more
can figure this out.
fortification,
But
I
is
think,
that
would be good,
playing
so
the
we're not
game for you?
straight out in
Like,
the
how
open.
much of it is playing the game for your players when you devise plans for them, and how much of it is just smoothing things over? Like, is that a game mechanic that you want to introduce to the game, where you ask your players, like, can I make this defensible? And you're like, well, tell me how you would do it. Because that's a good role-playing moment. That's a good challenge overcoming moment. That's an interesting little, like, how would you defend yourself here? Like, that could be a playable moment. Or you could be like, well, this is exactly what you would do. You have this equipment, and this is the things that you would need to do. Let me devise a plan for you, and then you can greenlight the plan or not. Or I could have just said, well, there's no obvious cover unless you can make some. And the factors that go into the decision making on this area are like, do you want to play the game for your players to a certain extent? How much time do you want to spend on this moment? For, you know, if I told them how would you go about and do this, they might talk for 15 minutes and come up with a really cool plan to keep the hut guarded, but then like we just move on, right? Like, oh, you made the hut guarded. Now there's no encounters. Cool. Moving forward. And is that really a good 15? Did that feel like a fun 15 minutes of use where you're hiding the hut? If it's a more dangerous situation, then that would be a better use of game time. In a less dangerous situation, it's probably better just to say, yeah, you can find the tools and don't worry about it so much. On the other hand, if you say, yeah, you can find the tools, don't worry about it so much, you're telegraphing that it's a low danger incident, and then the player, like, every time you give the players information, or every time I shouldn't say give information, every time you help smooth things over for speed of gameplay, you're telling everybody, don't be worried about this. This is not a combat situation. It's a nice way of telegraphing that. If you want to telegraph that, then that's fine. But sometimes you want to make sure your players are on the edge, or maybe not on the edge, but that they're in a state where they're thinking that things could be happening. Like, if you tell your players you are in a safe spot, you are in a danger spot, and you only say safe or danger, then we miss out on that whole realm of like being prepared for danger, even if it might not be coming. But if you spend too much time in that we're preparing for danger that may not be coming, then you're just wasting your time. And the sweet spot for DMing is finding a way to telegraph safety, telegraph danger, and have the players prepare for the things in the middle, and to manage all of these things together so that the players are never too certain that they're totally safe, unless they're absolutely certain that they're safe. And they're never too certain that they're about to get in. Like, you want them to always be in that, like, it's a big world state, but you don't necessarily want to spend the time that it takes to get there. And I don't have a good answer. If you're waiting for me to say, like, and this is how you determine when to do these things, I don't have that answer. I just want to present the problem of time management and what is it that we're here to do? What is it that we're gaming today? Is it, how do we hide our hut? Or are we gaming, like, don't worry about it because, you know, we don't care? Probably is less cloudy in general than some of the other zones. It's kind of dry here. There's this great lake, but the lake is fed from rivers that come from distant mountains on either side of the lake. So it's a pretty... arid's not the right word.
Dry. It's not very humid outside of the actual forest.
Right. It's not very humid outside of the forest. The forest canopy and the rivers and waters there make the, like, you know, first 10 meters of air pretty cool and nice. But meters. Everything in the Dungeons and the Dragons is in feet and pounds and miles but I've got 2 people who use meters, 1 person who uses meters and feet, and 1 person who uses feet. And now he's in Canada, so maybe some meters. I am okay at exchanging metric to imperial pretty quickly. Not amazingly accurate at it, but good enough. And since I'm playing with a mixed crowd, I tend to try and mix my measurements for everyone. But it is weird when you mix feet and meters. Some pretty good rainfall, but in between, it's nice and dry.
For sure. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. You're getting through your long rest here in the woods. You've got your rations. We've got this slow music. We're taking our time. We're talking about things. We're in a low energy state right now, kind of mystical. Everything's going nicely.
What is it like?
We're creating a sense of calm and ease. I don't know if that's the mood that we want to be creating, but based on the music and the way we're talking about things, we're putting everybody in a real calm, passive, gentle, don't worry about it, nothing exciting is happening sort of state.
This week here.
I
know some people are confined to the house, sort of under a tiny house arrest. What about the rest of you? Are you exploring? Are you sticking nearby? How do you pass a week of time in a foreign forest? Are you hunting? Are you digging holes?
I think Cypher's really paranoid about also being like infected, so she's constantly like checking herself for mushrooms, covertly checking other people for mushrooms. I'm assuming, does she ever see any?
You do see wild mushrooms growing in the forest.
Okay, but none of people's heads.
No, you don't see. Well, yeah, I mean, you do see. Yeah, that is true. Couple days into the rest, maybe not even a couple days. Maybe it's like the next morning or the next evening, whenever it is that you pass your perception check well. But you will see little accessories coming off of Cassian and Steermere.
Nice.
Just them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming this is like a morning or something. We're just sitting outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you wake up, you come out of the tiny hut, you go down, to take a piss somewhere, you come back, you've got like a cup of fresh water from the lake, and as you're sipping it and looking around, you can see Cassian.
Now, one thing that I like to introduce to D&D campaigns is the normalcy, the everyday things, like you wake up, you have a cup of water, you go somewhere to take a piss, like the normal aspects of life that we always seem to skip over in movies and books and TV and like people still need to go to the bathroom. We still have our normal bodily function. Like there's things what was the last time you watched a movie where like anyone used a bathroom? Anyone had to take care of some bodily needs. Someone was like, I'm hungry, and it wasn't like a major plot point. Like the ordinary parts of life are really fascinating to me, and I want to include the ordinary parts of life as much as possible. Now, at a certain point, if you spend too much time on it, it becomes a waste of time. But I want to constantly remind our players and ground them in a certain amount of reality that, like, yes, you still have bodily functions. Yes, you're still a person in a world. And, like, there was a time where another character, I think it was one of Nick's characters, ran into a dragon. And I rolled some dice, and he ran to the dragon when he was going out to take a dump by an abandoned wall in a ruined area in a frozen wasteland, right? And it was during the bathroom break that the scary dragon came. And I think it's very... I don't like to focus on the the bodily waste functions, but I think they're especially good at reminding us that our characters do, like in between the dragon slaying and the magic casting and the overthrowing of tyrants and the speaking to gods, like you still have to go to the bathroom. You still need to do ordinary stuff. You still need to like sit down and veg out for a minute every now and then, right? We're still regular people in a regular world, and to me that's a really important facet that gets skipped over too often.
You bring them over near the hut. The hut is impenetrable to those who are not already in it when it was cast, so this should be a nice safe zone. It's a nice little biohazard spot here, and sure enough, those inside can see the little doohickeys upon their heads.
Drolv razor and salivating.
Oh, Drolv razors.
Everyone can see them.
Yep.
As she sees him salivating, she will say something in Hobgoblin.
Now, I don't remember what we said during our last Lazarus expedition VOD, because it's been a while since we've recorded one of these. But the connection between these two, as we can see here, we're always trying to create separation in the party. We're trying to create a sense of distrust. We're trying to create a sense of unity and a sense of separation, because something is coming where these two and these two will be ideologically split on something. And so while we want the party to be functional the whole way through, we want to create enough of a pretense so that when a rift occurs in the party, it's not completely out of the thin blue, no, out of the blue sky, out of the thin air. It's not completely out of the blue. We want to make sure that there's always been this sense of like these two have their own special connection and do their own thing. So Pokemon challenges speaking to Potato McWhiskey in Hobgoblin and DMing Potato McWhiskey what was said, which is just what happened here, is that technique for making sure that we've got a distinct feel within the party, that there are two separate groups functioning here, but without, the party being an active conflict. Now, we can debate whether or not this was a good idea later in the campaign, but the method by which we are setting it up is excellent. No questions asked. This is a great method of creating that like intra-party separation and maybe distrust. So you might decide that was a terrible idea, or that it was a fun idea that just went badly, or even that it was actually great all the way through. But the setup was done very well. Yeah,
it makes them easy to track. It's a big downside to being a hobgoblin.
Ugh.
That'll be useful for a future campaign.
In one maw, out the other.
Neal, don't you remember? Hobgoblins have very stinky poos.
I had forgotten.
Okay, fine, to get advantage on this.
These are the kind of details the people watch the show for, okay? Because I guarantee you there would have been a Reddit thread. It's like, if they were in the tiny hut for a week, where did they poo?
No, it's very valid. Yeah. Okay.
No, there would be a Reddit comment that's like, if they were in the tiny hut for a week, why aren't they playing 2E?
True.
All right, let's skip ahead.
I would also like to talk about...
He's done so. And it's on this day that...
someone has been making chapter headers, which is so nice.
To both roll me perception checks.
So we got an encounter coming up here. It's some elves that are going to show up. Because as I mentioned before, we're at the edge of the Elven Forest. We spent half an hour with this chill fucking music, setting up like a gentle, easy, low risk, no danger thing. And now we're coming with the, hey, remember you're in those Elven woods and it feels all safe and mystical and like nice? Well, it's not necessarily safe and mystical. Well, safe or nice, but it might be mystical and dangerous.
Talking about mushrooms.
How can you not? I think we keep finding ourselves like...
We call perception checks to see if anyone beats the Elven perception.
3 hours. And then we go back to normal.
Then we go back.
The Elven stealth.
Worse and worse as the days go by. And I'm like dreaming of mushrooms as well, Neal, I think.
So you're in a little bit of a panic. Like you know that you've got this infestation that you can't see and you can't feel and you're not aware of, but like you trust that it's real, and so you're being haunted by your state.
I think more like the mushroom is having an effect, and I'm becoming more and more like my non-infected agenda is fighting against the mushroom agenda for control of my.
And you think the mushroom agenda is making you think of mushrooms?
Yeah,
that's what he thinks.
Because I think it's making me think that I need to feed mushrooms to other people. Because that's what Ethan did, right?
I think Cassidy's not thinking of any of this. Cassidy's just chilling and thinks Steamer is being fucking weird.
The other thing is that Nadinus has just come down to Earth, and this Ood guy.
They're talking about mushroom shit. I'm setting up the next encounter, right? That is this section. That is my dice section. So I don't know what I was rolling there, but we are preparing the next encounter. We're probably setting up the number of elves, their AC.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
Making their checks to see whether or not the party is getting spotted or how they're being ambushed.
Well, let's make a roll over here. How does this work?
The mood music should change right about now. Something's happening.
Let's see.
We're going to need an adjustment in the party
kind
mood.
Of monster are we going to get here?
Look how chill everyone is.
Trollaroo.
No.
God, I hope it's not a Trollaroo.
It's going to be an entire squadron of Trollaroos with baby elves in tow.
It might just be the elves coming to give us food.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It is the
There'll be
elves.
some sort of elven forest monster, like a troll or something.
Oh, maybe a elven cat?
Yeah, maybe elven cats, yeah. They're dangerous.
A pack of 24 mountain lions approaches the party.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Were those the same rolls? 2d20 drop the lowest +9. Looks to me like an elven stealth check at advantage.
They're dangerous.
A pack of 24 mountain lions approaches the party.
Oh, that's not too bad.
All
can
right.
handle.
As you're having one of these arguments, a pair of nets drops down on you.
They're
from
attack rolls.
the branches above, and I think a 24 will easily hit one of you, and the 16 will easily hit the other. This is one of those like you're taken by surprise, so your dex doesn't factor in, and I don't think your armor makes a difference when it's whether or not you're trapped by a net. So those rolls will absolutely snag you right away.
Where's that music
And I think
change, Neal?
This is the opportunity where we should roll initiative for the two of you, who we just mentioned a moment ago, tend to, hang out a little bit further from the rest of the camp so that you don't spore them.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, pausing for a moment. Earlier we talked, I had muted the stream at that point, that these two who are infested are trying to stay away from everyone else so that they don't spore them, so they don't infect their party, which is not necessarily something we need to talk about, but knowing that they're in a place where the encounters could come up, we took some time earlier to be like, how is the camp arranged? Where are people? What is your ordinary life like? We had that soft music going, and we were talking about this, that, and the other thing. We created this sense of calm because they were resting here for like a week to get their spell slots back. And when you give the party a chance to talk about how they live their lives, all of a sudden people stop doing the most optimal defensive, offensive, protective, combat-ready things. Chill music, lots of downtime. How do you do this? The party role plays really well. And when they role play really well, they put themselves in disadvantageous combat situations. But that's great, because then we get to exploit them a little bit. But if we exploit every non-optimal decision the players make, it will drive them into a paranoid corner where they always are thinking about defense only, and then they become like crazy paranoid, ultra defensive, ultra aggressive characters. So the goal is to encourage role play and encourage the party to behave like regular characters, and then like find interesting moments of their regular life that can have fun or interesting effects. Like the party's a little bit split up because of disease, and so the split party gets attacked, but without driving them into those moments of total, the world's out to get me. Or if we do drive them into those moments of like the world's out to get me, then we need to lean into them and be like, yeah, you guys are super paranoid. You're super careful. You've got your weapons on you all the time. You've got your armor on you all the time. When you run into other people, you're paying attention. You're looking around to see if anyone's about to get you. And that paranoia, that defensiveness bleeds through, which will only make so you can see how this would become a reinforced feedback mechanism where the party is more defensive, and so everyone around them sees them as more defensive, which makes everyone else wary, which makes the party wary, and then it compounds until the party is just a bunch of like killers. This right here, nice opportunity of like you're in the wilds, you're splitting up for safety reasons. The safety split up is not going to work in your favor. Just don't overexploit it, Use it well, but don't burn your trust with your party.
Why are we not in 10 over?
I didn't click it.
I did.
Now this music, this is Rap Battle.
You might need to
the Rap Battle track off of Tabletop Audio. It's a track that lets us feel like there's a little bit more excitement going on, like there's something happening, but it doesn't indicate that you're in dire danger. Like if we had played Black Rider, or if we had played In Through the Breach or something like that, it would have given the party the indication that their life is in danger. This is just the music that lets you know something's going down and you need to be ready and excited for it.
If you take some amount of damage and if you get in a fight, it will extend your long rest. Like you'll have to complete this day and then do another day or two. I have to check I'll double check the rules. But if the fight gets really out of hand, like, you know, if you get knocked unconscious or if you expend all your remaining powers, you know, then it might eventually cancel the whole long rest.
Okay, but I could cast a little bit. I could cast a spell or two and potentially rescue it.
And potentially you'll just have to extend your rest another day or two. Yeah. I just need to roll these things in secret so you don't see them. Such a heavy boy that you need 2 of these creatures to counter your weight. So they're going to need
Where
to
are they? They're in a tree near us?
We went too far forward.
So
Here
when
we go.
you were hit by a net, you are restrained. So your speed drops.
So what we got is elves in trees dropping nets down on people below.
You have disadvantage on your attacks, and attacks against you have advantage. And you have disadvantage on your dex saves.
I'm gonna carry around a fucking net.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty legit.
Every time the party gets hit with an unusual weapon that like puts them in a disadvantaged situation, the party's like, these things are OP. We absolutely have to use these things all the time. This is so broken. And it's like, it's so broken, and this one particular thing, like the elves are really good at stealth and they hide in tree tops and then they like drop trees nets on you from above. And like in that situation, it's really useful. But if you're just walking around with the net most of the time, it's not going to be useful. But every time the enemy does anything remotely clever, party's always going to be like, oh, well, that's broken. I'm going to do that all the time now. And then you're like, well, it doesn't work all the time. It only works in these certain situations, which is why they attack in these situations. It's a never-ending battle.
In the right direction in order to sweep under your feet. So this is going to be their acrobatics check. Actually, probably, yeah.
Sorry, wait. Where's their initiative and what are they?
You can't see them because you don't know yet. And so that's why they're not all
about to find out, Nick.
Yeah.
Do I know they're in the tree?
Because the net fell directly down on top of you? Maybe you're not. Maybe I'm lying to you, but it just seems really straightforward.
You're saying it's like 2 people, like.
Yeah, well, you're about to see them. Just let me cook, Nicholas.
Let him cook.
Yeah.
He's cooking.
No, I'm trying to work out if I can like cast a spell at them in the tree. Like, do I know they're in the tree or is that?
Well, just wait till your turn, okay? Just wait till your turn. Dropping out of the tree are a pair of elven archers. They kill their check on the net.
That's such a classic D&D moment where the DM is trying to explain what's happening and the player's like, I want perfect information of the situation before I make my decision. And the DM's like, well, you don't have perfect information. And the player's like, well, then how do I know any of the information I have? And the DM's like, oh, like I'm trying to create this, you know, I'm trying to give you enough information so that you're not like, this is all bullshit without... It's a classic problem, and it's a classic dynamic that comes up. Love it. Love it.
Cassino kind of put his hands up and say, hey, we mean no trouble, friendly elves.
A person surrendering? Perfect. This is exactly what we want.
That's a great thing to say. Steermere, you can see 2 elves hanging 10 feet in the air. You just saw your buddy pulled up in a net.
Steermere's not having it. He's pissed.
It could happen to you. What are you gonna do?
Oh, I'm not being pulled up. I hear Cassian trying to talk to the elves. That's happened before my turn.
Yes.
I mean, yes. I would like to gauge their reaction before I take my action.
They have not reacted.
Now, this is another interesting point. This is a real issue that we run into a lot in D&D and all sorts of campaigns where we're in initiative and a person wants to figure out what someone else is going to do before they take their turn. But the whole idea of initiative is that sometimes you have the moment to make things happen, and you don't know necessarily what someone's going to do before you make things happen, right? So if you want to know whether the enemy is going to be aggressive or not, but like all of a sudden you've got an opportunity to react, if you look at the enemy and pause to see what they're doing, you're losing the initiative, right? You're taking a look it might take you and them moments, maybe minutes to properly display their reaction. And it's also possible that the people who are throwing nets on you aren't trying to like showcase their intention on their face. They might be intentionally trying to hide it. Or, you know, does it look like the enemy is going to be charging me on their turn? There's all sorts of questions. You always want to know what is going to come around the corner so you can make the best decision for what's about to happen. And this gets awkward because on your turn, you should make your action deciding what you want to do. And if you want to be peaceful, then you should do something peaceful. However, if the enemy is going to be aggressive, being peaceful is a huge loss. Like, if you try and say like, hey, everyone, we're cool, we're surrendering, but they're just fucking murder hobos, then you're going to get yourself killed. But if you present yourself in a defensive or aggressive way, like you're going to a combat, and they're kind of peaceful, well, you might drive them into combat. And so if we stick to core initiative concepts, being peaceful is dangerous because you might forego your turn in order to be peaceful and then just get wrecked as a side effect. On the other hand, if you are being aggressive and they were going to be peaceful, but you go first, then all of a sudden, like, you have turned an opportunity for peace into an opportunity for combat. And I think that is an interesting and fun part of the game where you don't know the motives of everyone at the table and you don't know necessarily why or how or what's going on. And you just have to make a decision. You have to present yourself in a way, and that without knowing exactly what's happening, you could be making a decision that's not good for you in the long run. And that's interesting and that's fun. And I think that's a core part of the game. But I also understand from a player's perspective, especially when you want to like win, that you want to know as much as possible. So since it's been a while since we recorded this, let's find out how we deal with that.
Acted by the time your turn comes along.
Well, he said
They have
action.
They have not reacted by the time your turn comes along.
Well, he says it. I mean, what?
Sounds
They
like
just
you
don't
are
react.
maybe skipping your turn to look for their reactions.
He's gonna get you.
I mean, 6-second rounds and everything, right? Cassian says, "Hey, don't do this to me," and your initiative comes along, and you're waiting. It sounds like to see what happens here. Sounds like you're passing.
What? Okay, fine. What's the thing with readying spells? I ready a spell to cast Shatter on the elves if they don't stop.
That's fine.
I thought you were out of spell slots.
Oh,
Didn't we get a long rest in the village we were just in?
We did.
no, yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I've got all my
Okay.
spell slots. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So it casts your spell, but then you use your reaction to actually target it. So if you, by the end of your next turn comes along, you haven't picked a target, the spell just fizzles, but it will burn your spell slot to ready it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you need to
But
set
does
a
he
set
do
of
like
conditions.
the verbal components and shit?
Yes, he has to
no?
do the whole spell casting, and then he just like holds the last moment of the spell.
My reaction is that if they don't cease being aggressive. If it's about to be my next turn, I'm gonna cast it if they don't stop doing what they're doing.
Just so you know, Nick, I think he's saying that you have to do the entire spell, just the thing.
I know.
hasn't happened yet. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'll lose the spell slot. I know that.
Yeah.
All right.
And that is an interesting choice. Because 5e lets you do this. I ready my spell, but I don't finish it. And if we're in a 5e world, you can tell when someone's casting a spell, and you can tell when someone is readying a spell because they do the verbal, somatic, material component motions and everything, and then they're holding it. You can tell that they were casting a spell, but you can tell they're no longer casting, but the spell didn't happen. And so this is a nice, I ready my shot. This is a nice reaction. I think this situation right here was handled very well, where the player wanted information like, so a certain amount of clairvoyance. And the DM was like, nah, boy, you can't have your clairvoyance. And the player's like, well, I'm going to hedge my bets and I'm going to walk right down the middle. I'm going to prepare for aggression, but I'm not necessarily going to do it. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. I think at the moment, in this moment, everyone might be there's a little bit of tension in the air when we're talking, a little bit of annoyance in the air as we're talking here. But the outcome is perfect. It's exactly what you want.
Who will shatter them? Perfect.
Yes.
Well done, Pass Neal.
Okay, the next initiative comes up. And
so essentially we have the players get nets thrown on them, and the players both don't immediately start to murder everyone.
No, this is conveniently done at a time when the rest of them were out of view. This is classic elven combat tactics. Oh my god, these are the wrong elves. Ugh, they don't have...
We'll have to read it.
You got lucky.
I have multiple sheets for different types of elves, and I think I just pulled up the wrong ones. This entire battle, the whole setup for here to get here, it was like 10 minutes to get to this point, and it was a lot of me like fumbling, looking for sheets and looking for rolls and not being 100% certain about what was going on. This 10 minutes could have been done in 3 minutes or 2 minutes if I had been better prepared. So let's chalk this up to DM fumbles.
We got
his
big
gear
bones.
is like £100.
That's a lot.
I don't think he's particularly thin.
Yeah.
He's like 6 foot tall. He's probably like, I don't know how much people weigh in pounds. 180 pounds, 200 pounds, something like that.
If you're 6 feet tall and you're not thin, you're probably 190, 200. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got like 300 pounds on you. This elf is way less than half that. So while they can pull the net in such a way that it does sort of slip underneath you and will maybe not knock you prone, maybe knock you prone. Make me a dex saving throw, DC 10, but you have disadvantage because you're in a net.
Ooh.
That is bad. It
Poor
will
Steermere.
knock you prone. I don't think that interrupts your spell
Angry
casting,
glare. The angry
Does
glare.
that trigger your spell?
I mean, I think so, yeah.
Wait.
Because Cassian says those words and they just ignore him and carry on.
I would like to argue that I think knocking someone prone at least calls for a con check, no?
Well, it's not. It's not in concentration because it's not been cast.
You are
You're
using
concentrating on
concentration to ready an action. Yes.
I mean,
I'm not even arguing for this one. I think just in the future, if I want to stop someone's spellcasting, I shouldn't have to like physically do damage to them. I shouldn't
I need
be
to
able to
hold their
shove them
hands.
or restrain them.
Well, they're not
Well,
using their legs to cast the spell, are they? Though. Using their
I know,
It
but you have
depends, 'cause, like,
concentration, right? That goes
if
on.
the
so
spell
someone
is
shoves
held
you and you
to-
hit your head.
Well, if
Lovely
it's held to
discussion
where
about
he has to say a
concentration.
word,
We're gonna skip ahead.
We got it. 12 damage each.
Everyone in the tiny hut should be able to.
That's a lot. Yeah, it's really fucking loud, so they definitely.
All right, here we go.
Okay,
There are
there's
3 of
our
them.
saves. I was looking for the
I
damage.
use Channel 24.
24 in
DC 15, 9 thunder
unless
damage.
they
Okay.
pass a con.
And they pass the saves.
And the tiny hut should be able
Everybody here, please, remaining characters, roll into initiative.
Can they roll in for the next round?
Yeah,
If they-
definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Do it in.
Right. Skipping forward a
A
smidge.
pair of archers go next. They've been hit by a shatter spell. These are the ones that are hanging in the air from the rope.
Now, an interesting
just the
thing
rope.
here
broken by the
to
shatter.
note is that we've got 2 elves attacking 2 people, and the elves are hanging by the rope. That means that either the elves are unaware of these other 2 people, or they're trying to capture these 2 people quickly before these 2 react. Like, whatever's going on here, both of the elves have committed themselves to hauling people by ropes. They've deployed all of their strength immediately, no reserves, and they're not necessarily in a strong combat position because they're dangling from ropes. Like, they might have disabled these people, but they don't necessarily have the ability to do much.
Oh, you mean your
Right.
rope and Nick's rope? Yeah, all the ropes are broken. Yes,
Okay,
and you will
I'm
fall.
free.
They will fall. Go ahead and you will take 1d6 falling damage. You'll take 2. And our elves they do not have any prevention from falling damage, so they will take 5 and 2 damage as well, dropping to the ground. 5 for you, 2 for you. All right, the first one of these creatures, whoops, it's to be, you have to take 2. There we go. The first of these elves drops to the ground and hits the ground prone, spends half their movement getting to their feet.
You can see my cat right here.
Draws an arrow
Just barely this little orange hump that moved a moment ago.
hits the ground
That's the
prone.
cat. He lives on my desk. He's not here right now, but this is where he would
The
be.
second one will do a similar thing, but aim their arrow at Cassian and go shh. And that is when Cypher, inside the hut, you've heard the thunder. You're sitting down. You can use half your movement to stand up. What are you going to do, Cypher?
I gotta say, this is not the most exciting combat.
I think we probably had
The awkward start, the like really low mood that we set before this encounter, the slow awkward start where I was having to look up a bunch of information was not great. The party being split is not so great. This is.
I tell him to wait for my turn, basically.
There are moments where we shine, and there are moments where we're a little bit more burnished. This is less. This is one of my less shiny moments.
Just leave the tiny hut.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll cancel the tiny hut, but he can leave.
Okay.
Cassian will use his movement to stand up slowly, so he'll use all of his movement because he's doing it slowly, and will whisper, "Everyone, calm down, including you, Steermare. We are not trying to have a fight with elves. We're merely passing through your forest."
So
Steer me.
Stand
reasonable,
up.
so diplomatic.
What does the mushroom tell you to do?
The elves are still pointing their bows at us.
Oh yeah, there's an arrow pointed right at your face by this, pointy
How far away
eared
is he?
ninny fuck. 15 feet.
Damn it.
I can tell you a little about them. These creatures are wearing studded leather armor. They have longbows and rapiers at their sides with a dagger as well. They've got a quiver with arrows and what appears to be a potion dangling at their waist as well.
I'm still in the net. I will try and remove myself
out of
from
the
the
net.
net.
It is a DC 10 strength check to free yourself or another creature, or you can do 5 slashing damage to the net.
I just try and free myself from the net with a strength check.
All right, DC 10.
Wah, wah.
Ugh.
That's 3 ones today.
Is it really?
Yeah.
You're getting them out.
3
man.
1s in 47 minutes? My
I've
God.
only seen 2.
Is it only 2?
It's only 2. It's your perception and this check.
Oh, the
Oh,
dex
wait,
was a
no.
2.
Yeah, the dex,
So the
was,
dex
a 2.
was a 2. Okay.
Yeah. But good. 2 1s and a 2. That's real good.
Start. Yeah.
Great start. Yeah, so you try to free
So
yourself.
we're going to skip ahead because essentially the party chills. Like we managed to get to a discussion point with the elves, so we're just going to skip to the discussion.
You can read it out.
It's that whole combat, what was 29 to 55 minutes, so that's 26 minutes. Almost half an hour. Not a lot of exciting role play, not a lot of characters excited about what was going on. The mood there was a little bit weak. Not a great start.
It's all of our names and descriptions.
Which note is this that you're talking about? The one from Julie?
We're going to back
You
up.
heard of the town of Blup? I asked the elves.
They nod.
It's currently the reason that we're infected. The whole town has whatever we have.
Is that where it's coming from?
So, is that where it's coming from? The elves are. That statement tells us that they know about this, that they're wondering where it's originating from, and that it is an active threat to them.
I will pull out the note that I was given and hand it to the elf.
Which note is this that you're talking about? The one from Julia?
Hold on one sec. No, it's from Pokemon. He wrote it for me.
I wrote 3 letters last session, and I gave one of them to Cassian.
It's letter
You have
one.
them in your. You have them
I'll
in your
read it out.
DMs. Yeah, you can read it out.
It's all of our names and descriptions. We're trying to get to Heatstroke and get a Scroll of Resurrection. Yeah, Cassian read this, but whatever. We went to the village of Blup. Everyone had mushrooms growing out of their head. They did not know that they had mushrooms growing. Ethan went in the village, and we got him back out. X days later, Ethan made mushroom soup for us all. Y days later, I and only I saw a mushroom growing out of Ethan's head. Ethan did not recount the mushrooms when recounting the story of the village. Mott casted lesser restoration, and it made the mushroom on Ethan wilt. Mott detected that Cassian, Steermere, and Drolv razors were infected.
They nod in understanding. You can see that they're pretty nervous about this half-orc here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so elves are nervous about the mushrooms. Party's being cool about the mushrooms, providing documentation. Elves are nervous about the hobgoblin. I think this is the hobgoblin. This is the half-orc.
And one of the elves will kind of get real close to you, Cassian, and in a lower voice say, This fungal infection plays tricks on the mind. Are you aware there is a monster in your ranks?
There are just friends here.
I like the elf being like, oh my god, you're so fucked up by this mushroom. Do you not realize that like there's hobgoblins with you right now? I love the idea that the elves think that the party's been duped into traveling with these monsters.
And Elven will cause the elf's partner to, the bow was lowered, but still sort of drawn, and it'll like come up halfway, not actually at anyone, but instead of aiming at the ground, it's aiming like 45 degrees.
We're trying to demonstrate the elf's level of danger. Like, bow is drawn. Okay, still drawn, but pointed down. Okay, now it's pointed part way up. Like, we're showing the amount of aggression the elves have based on their bow trajectories, while still allowing them to be readied, but saying like they've got it readied, but they're more willing to listen
Forward towards the ground.
or they're slightly less willing to listen at this moment.
We're a day out from our healer, cleric, from having another lesser restoration to cast on us. I think your focus should be more on Blup than us.
Are you guys still whispering?
Yeah, I was whispering to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't quite hear what they're whispering. You're 45 feet away or so.
Is there still a bow pointed at me or not?
No, there's not.
Okay.
Lower tensions, party distrust.
Where the bow's sort of like, the tension turns back towards you, and one of the elves goes, hey.
What's the big deal here?
Hey, I don't know what you guys know about the infection. I don't know if it spreads through contact. I don't know if you guys want to stay away, but these two are definitely infected. If you'd like to talk more on how to proceed, we can talk as well.
Diplomacy. Love it. You'll love to see it.
Might be not where you used to. I know you guys, I know you're kind as trouble with half-orcs sometimes, but I can promise you we come with good intentions. I'm from a civilized land. I'm not one of the ones out in the horde, out in the steppe trying to encroach on your land. We're on a mission. The letter that this man is holding is written by me. I'm not a savage monster. I'm capable of leading a party. Would a savage monster like me write instructions like that to make sure that we all get home safe?
This is the most reasonable
check at advantage. That's a
half-orc
very good argument
I've ever seen.
You are an unusual half-orc, clearly. Oh, thank God for that advantage. They listen to you, and they will relax the tension in their bows. And one of them will speak up and say, the hobgoblin, are they in chains?
They're not. They're with me. He's my partner, and I've known him for years. He's trustworthy like me. I know this is unusual.
So we're setting up tensions, right? Elves are notoriously territorial and highly, bristly at people coming into their territory. This is, because they've got really low population numbers. So if any elves die, they're hard to replace. They take 100 years before an elf is a fully functional adult. I mean, technically they're adult younger, but before they have the knowledge to be participating in society at a useful level, And they often have, they have nice stuff that everyone wants, and they don't have a lot of people. And so they're often, having to do a lot of work to keep themselves pretty safe. And there's some folks, hobgoblins and orcs, who they have historical rivalries from. And it's nice to remind everyone that there are other background things that can get in the way. Like, not relationships are going to be based on, class and society and cultural differences. And if someone appears to be a danger to the elves are going to be super fucking cautious about it. And that you can't just be a hobgoblin and existing in society as a normal creature.
And the elf will, having, relax the bow, put the arrow back in the quiver, and draw a small curved knife from their hand, and or from their belt, and take a step towards you and say, "Turn your back to me."
I'll turn my back.
Yep. They will grab your hair, it feels like, and give you a small haircut. Yep. And then the same elf will step towards Steermere.
A little bit of a trust game going on here. The elf pulls a knife and says, "Turn your back to me." That puts the elf in a position where I, as a DM, could be like, the elf stabs you in the back. He gets huge bonuses to the attack, blah, blah, blah. It just takes a little bit of trust from players to buy in that everything is cool, which is helped by how the conversation has been going, the party's desire to be friendly, and this really chill music.
The infestation will remain.
Never underestimate the power of music in setting a mood for a party.
Do you have a leader? Blup needs to be dealt with. We don't have nearly the clerics to go and handle it. If it continues, then more people are going to end up at your forests with this disease. You're not going to catch them, and it's going to spread like wildfire.
They look uncomfortably.
I always want to do voices for my NPCs.
That is not our concern.
I can sometimes do like goblin and kobold voices pretty well, animal voices pretty well. But I've never figured out how to like do elven voices and every time I try and do like a character voice, I can do it for that one encounter, but then by the time the next encounter comes along, or God's forbid the next session comes along, I've completely forgotten what the voice sounds like. And so I always want to do good voices, but I always forget what they do. And so if the character has any repetition, if I think that they might be around for the rest of the session or come back in another session, I never do it. And I haven't really figured out how to do voices for, gnomes or halflings or elves or these things. Well, I can kind of do a gnome one. And that's one of my great shortcomings.
Kingdom?
One of our clerics.
Oh,
just
this is
left
actually important. Here we go.
We
Your
need to
mushrooms
stay
will
here a
grow
few more
back.
days.
We will be cleaned in the morning. Our cleric will have the spell. We need to pass through these forests in order to get to Heatstroke. You can
Elf
check
is
us in the morning.
curious.
If you like.
He said heat stroke, important word.
It's easily gotten rid of with a lesser restoration.
Die check. Nope. Reading a book.
Why? Heat stroke. One of them chimes in saying.
I'll kind of point to the other one. They read the note.
We're looking for an artifact.
Did the note
note
say
said- yeah,
anything?
it
It didn't.
Scroll of Resurrection.
It said Scroll of Resurrection.
Perfect. Yeah.
We're not from these lands. You may have heard of us. We're from the Stormtide Kingdom.
One of our clerics just left for heat stroke last week.
Why?
Wait for the answer, and then I've got something to say.
They said it was divinely inspired that they.
So what we're hearing now is that Mott needs to go to Heatstroke. This other elven cleric needs to go to Heatstroke. we've got multiple clerics trying to converge on heat stroke at the same time that the party needs to converge on heat stroke. We're hopefully trying to give the party a sense that, like, you know, the gods know, or some greater power knows that the party's on their way there, and that they're bringing people to heat stroke for this thing that's going to happen. And one of the parts that I'm trying to hint at here is that Mott, lovely, helpful cleric who's been along the way, is has not been 100% truthful. Like, Mott says, I've been called to heat stroke, and can I travel with you there? But Mott knows a little bit more about what's going on here. And this is our next scene where we're seeing another cleric has been invited out to heat stroke to see what's going on. And so hopefully the party might pick up that, like, there's more than meets the eye about heat stroke, and there's more than meets the eye about Mott, and there's more happening here. And maybe you could ask Mott. Like, I don't think they end up picking up on Mott at all. But Mott's journey at the end of all of this, Mott's job at the end of all of this, was to get to know the party, to help judge them based on their actions and their goodliness, and all that fun stuff. And this is a moment that I think the party misses, to realize that there's more going on under the surface. We will be back, they say, as the two just sort of retreat, keeping an eye on you into the woods until they're close enough to take a hide action and disappear behind something, and then just gone from sight. I'm leaving the party free and clear of any elven marauders.
Seeing that the elves were fine with getting close to the other two, Cypher will get close to them as well.
Good little bit of logic there. Love it,
net.
Cypher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they leave the nets behind.
Thanks for staying calm, everybody.
Strange way to greet friends you're trying to help. These elves are a weird bunch.
They're just defensive. I can understand
Reasonable reactions.
That wasn't defensive. That was
It's still
Gonna skip ahead.
We were
Okay,
both meant
fair.
to be on watch, Steermere.
Yeah. But you were on watch too. You know, I'm old, so I'm kind of relying on you a lot of the time anyway.
Musical change.
But,
You can't just use your age as a reason for an excuse for everything, Steermere. You're more than that.
Thanks.
It's while the two of you are having this chat that, coming back from the bushes from where they had retreated, one of the elves comes towards you with like a finger pressed to their lips and is like sneaking across the forest floor in your direction, like keeping an eye on that corner where the other two disappeared around. We'll slink up to the two of you and go, "Have orc, hobgoblin with you. You sure you can trust them?"
With my life. And if they stepped out of line, I could handle them.
We've not known.
Let's just listen to that one more time.
With my life. And if they stepped out of line, I could handle them.
A little bit of foreshadowing there.
We've not known them that long. We travelled through the Badlands with them. We joined them in Scalesvale. They seem different to normal monstrous individuals, but I don't think you can trust anyone 100%.
I will reiterate, if they stepped out of line, I could handle them.
Pray that is the case. These monsters are known to us. They inhabit the hills beyond the West Wood.
So right here, we've got two things going on. This is actually a really great moment because we've got like classic elven racism. There's a half-orc and a hobgoblin with you. Half-orcs and hobgoblins are evil. Therefore, I'm going to talk to the party and be like, the people you're traveling with are evil. Maybe we should just get rid of them. Like, just bullshit elven racism. On the other hand, we already do have a bit of a divided party, a little bit, and we've been trying to play up that divided party angle a little bit. So this is also a moment of very reasonable, like, yes, the elves are racist against these people, but like there's some historical reasons why they are, and just because the elves have a deep passion for hating orcs and half orcs and hobgoblins doesn't mean you should discount it. Like, the elves aren't racist against orcs and hobgoblins for no reason. Like, they are dangerous and treacherous people. So we've got a little bit of foreshadowing and reminding everyone that there's this tension here, but like, it's easily dismissible, right? We're not saying, player characters, you can't trust your party, but we are giving them an opportunity to be warned about it and then have a good reason to be like, no, we can totally trust them. And I don't think this is the first warning that they've gotten, and I don't think it's going to be the last warning that they've gotten. But we do continually set up the, like, can you really trust your party members?
They are ferocious, tenacious, and know how to bide their time.
Thanks for the advice.
Wise words.
And then kind of like finger to the lips again and retreats back into the forest.
I pick up the elven net and I put it in my bag.
Yeah. Yep. It'll need a new rope attached to it because, if you want to pull someone in, if you just want to like toss them in a net so that they have to, blah, 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 then that's fine. But if you want to like knock them to the ground and have them trapped, that's a separate issue.
Just stealing the elven nets right in front of the elves.
All right.
Just
back
obvious theft.
Go ahead.
No, nothing.
Skippy.
She'll also say that it seems like the two were ambushed because they were being unattentive. I think they're a lot less careful than we initially thought.
That could be good for us or bad for us.
See, we've had a conversation behind the scenes about creating that sense of, to try and telegraph that there's danger here, right? We've been trying to telegraph the danger, and this little conversation here that could be good for us or bad for us, just one of those things that helps telegraph the danger. And I don't think these guys are. All right.
Cypher will
look at these faces.
Mooton's
like, what the fuck are these bitches doing?
Well,
they're not really going to betray us, are they?
Promised to come back our way. Why don't we take our first break? Party's a little more.
us, right?
Yeah. Mott was there. Ostigan was there.
I feel like I avoid talking too much. First of all, my hobgoblin's not great, so a lot of details kind of get lost if we're doing like detailed stuff. I usually have to do common.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But also, I don't want to. I know that if we speak too much hobgoblin together the entire time, we isolate ourselves too much from the rest of the party, and it can affect morale and stuff like that. So I would relay the story in common to him.
Okay. Mott will pick up when you tell the part about the elves saying that our cleric has recently been called away. And she'll ask for more information on that, but you don't have any more.
Yeah.
So what's the party to do? You got one more day here.
Let's revisit that moment.
Pick up.
I know that if we speak too much hobgoblin together the entire time, we isolate ourselves too much from the rest of the party, and it can affect morale and stuff like that. So I would relay the story in common to him.
Okay. Mott will pick up when you tell the part about the elves saying that our cleric has recently been called away. And she'll ask for more information on that, but you don't have any more.
Yeah.
So again, earlier we mentioned about Mott having a greater purpose, being more involved, the other cleric vanishing, leading to Mott. This is our quick little reminder to our players that, like, hey, the cleric that's going to heat stroke is interested in the other cleric that's going to heat stroke. This is just another little breadcrumb to toss out to maybe let the party pick up. They don't. That's fine. Our job as DMs is to throw out a lot of breadcrumbs so that the party might pick up one or two of them. Maybe you want to like sprinkle 10 breadcrumbs on a subject really gently, really passively, really subtly, and let the party pick up any ones that they want and follow it. You got to give them enough opportunities to find stuff without being heavy-handed, right? If you say, I were to have said in that situation, Mom wants to have a conversation with you about the other cleric. She's going to ask you this question, this question, this question, this question. She's really curious about this other cleric and where this other cleric is going, and she wants to know if she can have a private conversation with the elves regarding this other cleric. And she seems really like just eager to know. She's like, what type of god is it that the cleric is attached to? Did they have a name? Did they, what sort of items did they bring? Did they pack any ritual equipment? Did they have any one that they traveled with? If Mont were all of a sudden really interested in this cleric, which I'm trying to indicate here, but if we spent a lot of time talking about it, it would indicate to the party that like this is something that we should be paying attention to. If we talked about Mott asking for the cleric for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, the party would immediately grab onto it and start to dissect it to see what's going on. But if we do it as a throwaway line, like, oh, Mott asks about the other cleric to you, but you don't know anything else about it, so she drops it, and then we move on. That's just like a little breadcrumb. Really easy to ignore if you're not paying attention. Really easy to ignore if you are paying attention but you just don't care that much. A good DM scatters lots of little breadcrumbs about the greater story throughout the campaign. So this is a good thing right here.
So what's the party to do? You got one more day here. What are you going to do about these elves? You just going to chill?
We want it to feel like if you watch a campaign a second time, the goal is for a person to be able to pick up on all these little breadcrumbs and be like, oh my God, it was so obvious all along that this was going to be the thing. Like that's the feeling you want your viewers and your players to have, as if they were to go back and watch it or play it a second time, that they'd be like, oh my God, it was right there. It was right there. That's the vibe we're looking for.
Cannibalism.
What a great point to come back into the story.
They're not my species. It's not cannibalism.
More's the pity.
Well, the elves do not return this day. How are we going to do sleeping arrangements when they're out there?
Oh, God. All right, this is an important moment. There's elves around you. It's sort of a dangerous situation. There might be some infection going on. We should keep it like this is our making sure that as we were talking earlier, like the party's never too safe, but they're not too much in danger. Let's manage that situation so that we are always setting ourselves up for whatever might come. And sometimes the grittiness of that can get in the way. And we've spent... it's been an hour and 15 minutes so far. We've rolled a few dice, not a lot. I mean, it's been a pretty low tempo vibe, and man, it needs to be done. But sometimes we can skip it.
Two further days of Nest will be yeah. So 2 more days of rest, and you're good.
Well, I don't know. If we want to wait for the elves, then we could do the extra 2 days, but I can live without 1 spell slot.
Okay. Well, Mott will drop down another 2 lesser restorations, and everyone should be free of the infection at this point.
Blah, blah, blah. Moving forward, finally done with the infection.
Hail. Decision.
The elves come back.
If you leave the monsters behind, we will take the rest of you through our lands to the north. It is far easier to get to Heatstroke from the north than it is from the south.
The elves are saying, leave these 2 monsters. We'll give you the easier way to Heatstroke. But really, the music is still so chill. It's hard to get the player engaged. We are in the chill, gentle, cool forest, and so the vibes are kind of right there. But we could maybe be using a track with a little bit more tension here.
There are no monsters in our party.
Razor smiles proudly at the mention of monsters and then immediately slackens his smile when he remembers he's supposed to be human.
We don't know what
monsters
we'll face.
in our party, my friend.
We don't know what we'll face when we get to Heatstroke. We need them. They're capable fighters.
I'll show the elves my spell book, and I'll say, do you think a monster could read magic like this?
They just glower at you.
God, I hope
the
I
elf
used that
doesn't
word
even
right.
come forward to read it. You just hold it up and whatnot, and they just give you the look of disgust, the look of.
I cast Minor Illusion, and I'm going to create the illusion of a goblin, who basically moons the elves.
I will.
The elf will put a quick arrow through your illusion with a 19 to hit.
It's important here when we do this roll. The reason that we do this roll in public is that the party can see, if they look, the modifier on the attack roll. We want to just demonstrate the strength of the elves. They're firing at plus 10 to hit. So if they've got 20 dex, that's plus 5. Then what? 2 for elven archery would bring us to plus 7, and then another 3 to hit means they're at least level 4 or something. They're somewhere between like 4 and 8, or maybe they only have 18 dex. Whatever the case, plus 10 to hit is pretty fucking baller, and you might not want to get into a fight with this elven archer scout.
And he'll draw over and he'll say, "Ooh,
Nice shot.
someone's feisty."
Elf, may I come and speak with you?
Elf
I
will
give
retreat a little
glance
bit.
To Steermere. I give him like a head nod.
All right, come with.
I put a 1 second, Cypher. Not everyone is understood.
That should be fine.
Party chance.
Skippy.
They'll look at it.
And kind of like show it to the elf and ask them, do you know what this is by any chance?
Wait, what is he showing
Explains.
them?
Come any closer, and we will have problems.
Understood.
That should be fine.
Could you and he'll kind of rummage through his bag with his back to the party, and he will pull out the prism.
Oh, the
kind of, like,
prism.
show it to the elf and ask them, do you know what this is by any
I don't
chance?
remember if we've talked about this in the last director's
look at it.
commentary or not, or
Shake
when
your
they
head.
were given it.
No.
But the prism
magic is
is
not my
a
specialty.
it's a
Take a mental note of
device
it, and if
through
anything
which
comes to you, maybe
Julia Farseer can cast her spells. Like, it's a known object with the proper setup, so that at any point in time she could use a type of clairvoyance spell to look from that prism specifically, or clairaudience spell to look, or maybe use it as a crystal ball. That it's a scrying device that she can like use with her other magic, so that she can observe what's going on with the party.
And I was trying to be secretive about showing it.
Yeah, so you don't see the prism, but I think you can see that they're talking, but you
Yeah.
can't hear the words. You can't see the prism. But the elf will shake their head and go,
We were talking earlier about the rift in the party, where these top 2 characters and these bottom 2 characters are kind of like in their own little subgroups, and there's a little bit of party like hiding information from one of each other. And whenever you're running a campaign and you're thinking about stuff and everyone's like, ooh, I want to have like a secret from the rest of my party, and it always sounds great, but the day-to-day management of it, as soon as you start introducing secrets within the party, you get moments like this where, well, these 2 characters need to have a chat, and then the other 2 players just like hang out and chill, and then if they'll zone out because you're just sitting at your computer, and then something else is happening, and so then you're browsing, and then you hear like, oh, the crystal, and you're like, well, I want to chime in now, but you kind of weren't paying attention. You kind of forgot that you weren't talking with them, and it creates a bit of an awkwardness. I think that D&D is best served when all the party is together all the time and everyone can communicate and work on all the things together all the time. But sometimes the party does want to split up. Sometimes there's very legitimate reasons for the party to split up, and you can manage those situations. But we should always strive to create a harmonious, homogenous party where we don't have like, we're going to go do this thing without you guys. It's workable, but it's not the strength of D&D. Those moments should be kept to a minimum, and they should be used very appropriately for the right set of things. But we should try not to have our parties be divided in any way, shape, or form.
the northern route is much easier. It's
Not
only
giving up my allies.
40 miles from the last water source.
I nod. Well, if there's nothing we can trade and there's nothing we can do, then I think this is the route that we'll have to go.
Does it seem to Cypher like they're not coming to an agreement?
Well, they shook hands, and then it looks like,
Yeah, he's kind of packing his bag.
yeah, looks like Cassian's coming back.
Cassian. But can we travel through the forest?
We can travel alongside the forest in the shade of the trees. However, they will not allow us to go through the forest with you, and we're not giving you guys up. So
There must be some compromise. There must be some.
Whether
we
if
go
I may,
blindfolded.
If I may, my elven friends,
There's just the one,
disinfection.
though, just so you know.
Oh yeah. If I may, my friend, this infection that you're struggling with are you struggling with it? Is it spreading? Is it a problem?
Give me a persuasion check, this time without advantage. Yeah, they will say, we are unaffected.
Surely.
Quick side note, we are unaffected could mean we are immune to this infection, or this infection is not currently present in our people. It could mean two different things.
Your kind runs into problems around here. A tribe that's giving you trouble help you out in exchange.
Now, what we've got here is the party. Drolv Razor's Potato McWhiskey had said, like, there must be some compromise. There has to be some compromise. Now, to be fair, there doesn't have to be any compromise whatsoever. But what we should hear as a DM is that this course of action is really important to the players, and that they've put enough time and energy into this discussion with the elves that, like, they don't want it to come away as a bust, which makes sense because we've spent, from minute 29 to minute, 83, essentially, almost an hour. We've spent almost an hour dealing with these elves, and if it turns out at the end of that hour that the elves are just like, get the fuck out of our forest, you can go along the other way, that's not too satisfying for the party, even though there doesn't have to be some sort of compromise. The elves could just say, get the fuck out, and then, like, threaten the party. But we're hearing from our players that, like, this is important to them. And as the DM, we want to make sure everyone is having a good time. We want to make sure that the campaign is moving forward. We don't want to just hand the party every answer every solution the way that they want them just because they want them. But we are having to find a way to make the game fun for everyone.
Cassian smirks a bit.
Why would you help?
And we get Pokemon challenges here being like, hey, we'll help you with some of your problems. We're getting the party being like, very much, we want to work with you. We want this to be a win for us. Let's go through your forest.
Yes.
Well, to be quite honest, it would mostly be for you to help us and for you to help us as well. But me and my partner and Julia Farseer, who owns us, we are also sworn to this land and to protect it and to make sure that everyone here can thrive. So if there was something as vile as that infection or something else disturbing the peace of this land,
There is something as vile as this infection disturbing the peace of the land, and we would greatly appreciate your help in destroying it.
Drolv Razor will smile.
Not 10 feet behind you stands a monster of impeccable evil.
I have not demonstrated the capacity for evil, but you have demonstrated the capacity for prejudice, Elf. I haven't called you, and he'll stop himself, but he was about to say pointy ear.
To be clear, the elves are 100% right.
My God.
They might be pretentious assholes, but they're usually right.
Well,
I know.
yeah.
I've been as well for a while, and so protective of their forests, and we don't mean to disturb that. And I do concede, and I glance at Drollrazor kind of knowingly while I say this. There's quite a few hobgoblins there that are horrible creatures. I've seen them myself. Believe me when I say that he is not one of them. He's gained the trust of humans. Look around you. He's gained the trust of me. I've seen him gain the trust of dwarves. This is an outright lie. And his name.
I appreciate
I've
him
seen
noting the
humans
lie.
cheer for him. Chant his name. He's not like the others.
There's a pause, a consideration. You have done very well on your perception checks thus far.
Persuasion?
Yes, persuasion, thank you. Why do you seek the Pyramid of Heatstroke? Why do you seek this Scroll of Resurrection?
Cassian will speak up. We seek to bring back our king, good King Arnold, who has completely removed slavery from the Stormtide Kingdom. He was assassinated far too young. And
because there's a good age. There's an appropriate age for you to be assassinated.
I believe that we are on a holy quest. We were originally led by a paladin of Paladin.
Yeah. You've got all your good reasons.
With these monsters?
Oops, here you go.
Cleric of the gods.
A paladin of Astaire traveled with these monsters?
No.
No.
He died before they joined us.
That's correct.
We can see the elves are maybe willing to listen if a paladin was cool with these monsters.
But I think I speak for Vasher that these people have shown they know the correct path and they know what justice is.
Now, I don't know if this is just my mood today, but looking back, negotiations with the elves about getting access through their forest is maybe not the most fun RP we've ever done. And we're just going to do an unusual thing here. We're going to take a quick look at this map. Right now our party is down here at the bottom section of this. So they're like right by this river. And the route that they want to go is through the woods and then to Heatstroke this way, rather than what the elves are suggesting, which is around the woods and then up through Heatstroke. This route, from river to Heatstroke is much shorter. Well, it's a few days shorter than this route. It's got better water supplies and everything. So the point of these negotiations is really only gaining us like a smidgen of savings in the desert, and it actually does require more overall movement. So as a DM, from where I'm sitting, I don't really care which way they go. It doesn't really matter. I'm at this point in time more interested in maintaining elven autonomy, maintaining a sense of like you are in someone else's land and they won't let you pass through it and they're very defensive of it, and I'm not going to let you, like, we're trying to give character to these elves by giving them some like hard principles that they're not willing to back down on. And we're doing that with the understanding that the difference for the party is not going to be a huge loss. Like, they're not going to be hugely disadvantaged. There is some disadvantage to this. This takes a little bit more preparation, maybe a little bit more cunning to do than this way. But like at the end of the day, they're both workable. So we're being kind of a hard ass about the Elven Woods. The party clearly wants it. We want to maintain Elven character for the point of storytelling and world building and managing this concept of elves being slow to change their minds and bristly. However, the elves being slow to change their minds and bristly is also it's not always the most fun thing to encounter, right? running into people who are slow to change their minds and distrusting and bristly can be exhausting. And I think my vibe, my recollection of this session and my vibe watching it now has been very much of like ooh, this is really dragging on. Ooh, this is taking a long time. Like, this may not be, there's got to be a better way to characterize the elves and to showcase their slow, decisive, their slowness in coming to any decisions, and their steadfastness in being isolationist might be the nice way of putting it. Whoops, we want to be right here. Right here. Yeah. There's got to be a better way.
Reasonable statements we're making here.
But the party's doing a really good job of being reasonable.
You, cleric, do you trust this man's words?
Roll of roses?
Aye.
We're changing the music to be a little bit more ominous, a little bit more tension building right now. A little bit more uneasy. Like, we're getting into some things here. This musical change could have been done earlier. The music could be louder, and it could be a little bit more like the appropriate music for this scene, for this negotiation, is one that hits that elven tone of, I don't trust you. I think you're a danger. We've been using this like super chill music. Bad fucking idea. We should have been using something that has a little bit more of an edge to it. Not too edgy, but enough of an edge to really give the vibe that the elves do not trust the party. Because we've been giving them like the verbal elves don't trust you with the musical everyone's cool and everything is fine and don't sweat anything. And we should be hitting the words and the emotional notes at the same time, at the same frequency.
I look at him and I consider him for 10 seconds. And then I'll say, I was unsure at first. Where I'm from, people don't really mix with the monstrous races. And the ways of the humans here were strange to me at first, but I've learned something from them. Tolerance for others can lead to making new friends in unexpected places.
He's so happy about this.
Like I said,
look how happy these people are. He's like, yeah, I didn't trust him at first, but now I do. And look how satisfied these two players are. These fuckers.
I don't trust everyone 100%, but I think Draw Fraser speaks the truth.
Look at that.
Heart.
Look at Jan. No, he's cool. He's got it together now.
You, other cleric, you travel willingly with these beasts. How do you...
Now, the elves have to ask both clerics. They can't just ask Steermere. They're obviously going to ask Mott, but now it has to be DM role-playing with DM, which is the worst.
How can you stand beside them and wear the symbols of Martha? Mott will...
NPCs in the party are the worst if they can talk.
Dispatched cleric, I must go to Heatstroke with whatever company means to get there. Elf will be a little surprised and look to
I dropped a dice somewhere and I can't find it.
You're the leader. Does your journey to Heatstroke involve taking this cleric with you?
This cleric wanted to come into my sorry, wait, what was the question? I'm a leader. Does my journey
Are
involve
you
taking her?
why is part of your mission to bring Mott to Heatstroke?
Mott wants to join us. We're going to the same place. I thought it'd be good to keep one of the gods' people safe.
I lost a D10.
She's proven useful as well. I give her a nod. If you don't let us through, he'll say, with our companions here, I point to them, would it be okay if I point to Mott, if she went with you? Sounds like a far easier journey for you guys than it would be for us to take her.
Mott will step forward a little and say, you have led me this far safely. I wouldn't dream of leaving your company.
We need our magic anyway, Cassian.
And her skills with the healing kit.
If it wasn't for Matt, we'd all be infected by now.
It's not out of her being useless, Steermere.
Skip.
Oh, in the woods, it's 40 miles through the desert.
That's less than a week, right?
Skippy.
Be hitting someone. I'll use like Ethan. What's the fighter kid's name?
Ethan. Yeah.
I'll be.
Or
Ethan.
Matt.
All right, here's the deal. They talk with the elves. Everyone does their best to persuade the elves. The elves decide that they're going to go back and talk with their other people. It's going to take a week for the elves to chat with their other folks, and then they're going to come back and give their decision to the party. This is our way of saying and showing the elves take a long time to make their decisions, and they need to counsel, and eventually they let the party go through. But it takes forever to get there. And now we're, an hour and 45 minutes through the campaign, and we've had just some interesting negotiations. Got to characterize the elves. Could have been done better.
Mr. Mooten, can you roll me a D20? Ugh.
It's an oof right there.
It's okay.
Fine. It's fine.
You know what? I want
probably not
combat.
worth it.
I'm ready.
Oh, I wanted to.
Yes, we need the combat. However, we now have between a minute 45, an hour 25, and an hour 28 of the journey through the woods. That's 40 minutes of walking through the woods without combat.
Tricksy the elves are always pulling up some sort of sleeping spell or some sort of net or some sort of catch people off guard, get them on the wrong footing, and then do what you want with them. That's sort of their MO is, smile, and then when you're not paying attention, get you.
That's goblin propaganda.
I'll tell the party that something about his demeanor doesn't feel right.
As he says this, Neal, can I roll an insight check?
Yeah.
My greatest skill. 26.
Wow, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
That is.
Why would he lie to you?
Yeah.
If he wanted to kill you,
yeah.
They've told you to wait here for a week. They could have gathered an army of elves and just come to murder you at that point, right?
I understand your reservations, Droll raisers, especially the way they treated you when they first arrived here, but I'm a good judge of character. It's one of
Insight checks. Let's talk about them. They're awkward. An insight check is basically me being like, how truthful do I think this person is? And then you know how well you roll. And if you roll really well, you can more or less take whatever the DM says as the God's given truth. And it gets a little awkward because as a DM, you don't want to give the party straight up telepathy. What we did here was really good. Let's hear it again.
Yeah.
Why would he lie to you?
Yeah.
If he wanted to kill you, they've told you to wait here for a week. They could have gathered an army of elves and just come to murder you at that point, right?
So he's asking for an insight check to see if we can trust the elves, essentially. And he kills it. It's a natural 19 plus 7 for a modified 26. Great roll on 5th edition. My answer isn't yes, you can trust him. My answer is to frame his question in a light that allows him to make a reasonable assessment. Now, maybe I've secretly rolled that the elves rolled a 30 on their deception check, and so the elves are going to kill him. But the best way I found to handle insight checks is to not answer in a clear way, but to present a point of view that insight check is indicative of. So if he had rolled, if you'd rolled a natural 1 for a modified 8, I might say, I might get the point of view of well, you haven't met a lot of elves in your life. Their facial features are a little bit weird. You can't quite tell what facial features mean what things. You're looking at this person and they're kind of inscrutable, and they're inviting you into their deep, dark forest that you don't right now. You're at the edge of the forest, and you left for a week, and then you invited your whole party into their heavily defensible area. Maybe he's fine, but you really can't read him, and you're definitely going to be in a more dangerous situation. That's just a perspective. I'm not saying the elf is trying to get you, but I'm giving you the perspective of danger and distrust. Whereas with the 26, I'm giving you the perspective of it's okay to trust him. Both of those statements are totally true. It's just a matter of, what you want to feel. And I will, the point of an insight check is to get a good vibe of what's going on. So if you beat their deception, I'm going to give you something that's pretty accurate. If you're near their deception, like on par with their deception, if you tie with their deception, I'll probably play the fence a little bit if they're deceiving at all. And if you lose to their deception, I'll probably give you something a little bit off. Not always. Got to keep everyone on their toes a little bit. But I think it's more interesting to present perspectives because it gets our players into their characters a little bit more. It gets them thinking about logistics and mechanics and deeper motivations instead of be like, you can trust them. It's here's what they might be thinking about this situation, and that inherently leads you to being able to trust them, perhaps, if you believe that perspective. It gives room for flexibility, and it also gives us room for the elves to do some sketchy shit and not have a player be like, wait a minute, didn't you say that we could totally trust these elves? I rolled that 27 perception check earlier, or insight check earlier. This right here, excellent job, pass, Neal.
I understand
well done.
Your reservations, Droll Raisers, especially the way they treated you when they first arrived here. But I'm a good judge of character. It's one of the blessings the gods have given me, and I think we can trust the self. If they wanted us dead, there's easier ways to do it than inviting us into their forest and trying to ambush us. They could have just brought their forces here and been done with us quickly.
12 Racers will smile broadly and say, you have divine...
We're gonna skip.
They're very tall and they're very...
All right, musical change again. Now we're not at the edge of the Elven Forest. We're in the Elven Forest. So let's hear what the Elven Forest sounds like.
Large tree has been felled, and like a whole swath of light and all sorts of little trees growing up in between it. Can I get a nature check from whoever's got the highest nature in the party? It's actually probably
+3.
Ethan.
You mean... Oh.
I got a +3.
One.
They sound very mystical, kind of fancy, kind of magical.
Negative.
Ethan's got a 3. Why don't you roll a
walking
Razor since you
through
and Ethan
this
are tied?
fancy place.
Yeah. You're going to notice something here, Droll Razors. Your people are actually more from the steppe and the plain than they are from the woods, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think my tribe would be probably like... There'd probably be like caves and stuff nearby the plains, but we would be mostly plains living, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that your people do know, you travel to wooded areas from time to time to gather brush and debris and make poles and arrows. Like you need wood for stuff.
Wood or
Right.
bone, they both fit well.
Yeah. Here in this
That's a really good point. He should have got inspiration for that.
thick, tall, coniferous elven wood where you're always walking in shade and you can almost never see the sky except for areas where trees have recently been felled, you're going to notice that this forest seems very untamed. Like the undergrowth, which your people harvest for resources, that like easy to remove stuff that's like fallen to the ground and is no longer attached and makes it easier to haul away, is like everywhere. And all the woods that you've ever been to, the undergrowth is continually harvested as like a source of supplies. But this place looks like it's unlived in. It looks like it's
old growth.
Yeah, like old growth untouched by the hands of anyone.
Technically, that's not what old growth means at all, but he's picking up on the right vibe. And what we're doing here is we're demonstrating that I know what I'm demonstrating, but what a couple of interpretations you can take from this is that the elven population is so low that they don't have the capacity to harvest all of the forest's bounty. And there's not a lot of elves. Or maybe that they don't harvest things that fall. They only take things that are living. Or for some reason, the detritus that lies about isn't important to them. Or maybe we're going through like, the edge of their territory where they that they leave wild. By having a lot of stuff on the ground, it really slows your rate of movement. If you clear all the brush and you clear all the felled things, makes it quite easy to walk across. But if there's like heavy undergrowth and lots of old things that are lying around, it does slow down your movement quite a bit. So we're getting to paint a picture here. I know what the answer is. I know why the Elven Forest is this way. The answer is that the elves, well, it's because their population is small and they like the wildness of things, and that they have their own methods that I don't want to get into right now for resource harvesting that does not include gathering things from the forest floor. They've got their own weird elven things that they do.
Like no one has come to modify the area or harvest.
But it's a nice way to demonstrate, like, this is how regular people work. Elves are weird. Their forests have too much crap on the ground. You would have harvested that. It's abundant resources just laying here. We're going to skip ahead again.
That one back to Falumbra.
Because we're just walking through the Elven Forest. And you know what? There's some interesting RP in here. I think Mr. Mooton's character starts hitting on one of the elves. Maybe there is some fun stuff that goes down, but we're gonna skip over it. Let me double check. Yeah, there's a ranger named Violet, and they have some good conversation. There's some good RP. But we're gonna skip through it, and we're gonna come over to around here.
Thing. Vale went all down here.
Here we
started. Where are we here? Our party started way down here, and you traveled all the way up here to Belwind. Then you went all the way up to Scalesvale, then down to Cork, back to Scalesvale, back to Belwind. This map is obviously not to scale. Through the Badlands to Blup. Then you visited that village Tarn over here, passed a couple of other burned out villages, got to the Great Lakes, or singular lake, came over here, dropped off your boat, got half a day before the mushroom quests happened, turned around and spent like 2 weeks chilling at the edge of the river where you saw the horsemen and everything. And now you've traveled somehow through this forest and you're up over here near the north side of these mountains.
Which one's Heatstroke? It's hard for me to read that.
Yeah, well, Heatstroke is over here. It's this way. So the route that you're going to be taking is following the backside of these mountains until you come across these hills. Travel out as far as you can along the hills and then through the sands.
Now, having a map like this to show everyone where they went, so nice, so useful. Really ties the game together if the players can see a map and see where they've been traveling. Love the map. Maps are core to the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing experience, to the tabletop RPG experience. Like, you need the map to know how you're going. It really helps create a sense of progress. It's like when you watch movies or when you watch TV shows and like people are walking through offices having, important conversations and people are moving back and forth to talk. That walking and talking thing that West Wing kind of pioneered. It helps move the story. It helps you feel like there's progress, even though people usually stand and chat and they don't like talk side by side as they power walk through offices wildly. But also, accurate maps are new. Like, they're really new. Like, they're really, really, really new. Have you ever seen old maps? Have you ever seen... I'm going to try and find a really old map right now. I sometimes save them for fun times. Where is... Oh... No, that's too new. Oh, I thought I had a good old... Ugh. Let me find one for us here. Maps. What a bummer. There's one in particular, this great map of Italy and Sicily that is just fucking amazing. Ancient map of Italy. Is that how I find it here? Oh, really wanted to bring it. I have a great point about map making and the purpose of maps in games. And well, I just can't make my point. I thought this would be an easy thing. Ancient Roman map of Italy. Come on. I don't want map of Roman Empire. I want Roman map. Nope. Well, that's a bummer.
Oh, true. When you get back into the desert, you will have...
the point that I was trying to make is that old maps suck. Old maps are terrible. Old maps do not really show you everything. They also don't have proper layouts. Old maps function less like an image of what is, like what exactly is. Like you can't, on a modern map, you know, if this mount is 50 miles, this mount's gonna be 50 miles where no matter where you go. Old maps are very much more like, here are the landmarks that you are likely to encounter along this path. And then the distance between those landmarks isn't accurate in any way, shape, or form. And so, you know, two towns that might be a day away could be an inch on your map, and then a town that's like a week away from a city might be 2 inches away on the map. And the maps don't really show much of what the world really looks like, but it showed you how to get from place to place in the world. They have a completely different look and feel about them. Here we go. This right here is an ancient map of, this looks like North Africa, this looks like Europe, this looks like the Middle East, and this is pretty good. Actually, this is a really good old map. This is maybe India right here somehow. It looks detached, or I guess this is, oh, fuck, what's that? Sri Lanka. This is probably Sri Lanka, and this is Italy over here. Not Italy, India over here. And we can see in this old map, like, this is not what England looks like at all, and this is not what Ireland looks like. What is this? This is the Netherlands up here with this big inland bay. This is Denmark over here. We don't even have Sweden and Norway. This is just who the hell knows. Here are the winds blowing things around. This North Africa coastline's not terrible, but it's also not accurate at all if we compare that to a modern map of the world. Like a proper world map. We can see, you know, this whole coast over here is raised, and then it drops down into Libya. And over here, it's just more or less flat the entire way. And we get, you know, Turkey is actually pretty well done. Greece, I mean, you get this over here, but what the hell is this big island? This is Crete, and Crete looks just about as close to Italy as it does to North Africa. But you can see here that Crete is way closer. I said Italy, but I meant Greece. Crete is way closer to Greece than it is to North Africa. And this is, you know, your old maps are really just supposed to help you get from place to place. They're not supposed to be, they weren't, you know, this sort of accuracy. And the reason I was bringing up maps is to note that one of the problems with D&D campaigns and maps is that the players do tend to have like really accurate maps of everything, and it really helps the players figure out where they want to go. Like if you have a super accurate map of your campaign world for your players to use, they're not going to get lost because they can have a pretty good idea of, oh, well, we're in this forest. If we go east, we run into mountains. If we go west, we run into a lake. And then we'll just follow either of those, and then we'll be out of the forest. Not a problem. But if you have one of these, old-timey maps over here that are really not that great, you might look at Italy and be like, oh, well, this heel and this toe are just parallel to one another. So all I got to do was sail directly due east from the heel of Italy, and I'll run into the toe of Italy. And that's kind of accurate, but due east is also just along the land, and if you go due east from the heel of Italy, you're actually not going to run into the boot, the toe. You're going to run into whatever this is over here. That's maybe not the greatest example. This island right here is probably Corsica, actually, and it makes it look like Corsica is horizontal. Or maybe this is Corsica. I don't even know what these islands are, but they're clearly of the wrong size. And so in the old world, when people were exploring, you had a map that would give you a general idea of what's going on, but it wasn't so detailed that you could make any really solid inferences of it. Like, you still had to physically explore the thing yourself, and you might have a couple of landmarks to maybe help give you a good idea of what's going on. And one of my great struggles with Dungeons and Dragons is that you give players an accurate map because we make fun accurate maps, because the DM needs a map for themselves. And so you're going to make a map so you know where everything is, but then what are you going to do? Make like a bad, intentionally messed up map for the players to have? You could, but all of a sudden that's twice as much work, and then it's awkward to create a messed up map, and then it's maybe awkward for players to use a messed up map, and it's just... What I'm trying to say is that maps are integral to D&D, but having accurate maps takes away a little bit of the fun, I think. I think it would be more fun if players' maps were less reliable, and if they knew they were looking at something kind of goofy, and that they had maps that made them have to guess at stuff and use landmarks more in a roundabout way, and it put them in more of an explorer mindset rather than well, I already know what's beyond these woods. I have a map. What's beyond these woods is a plain, and there's a river here and there's a river there, and if I come across a river, I know exactly, it's a problem. It's not a big problem. It's a small problem. And it's a small problem that I don't know if everyone else feels, but I feel it all the time. On the other hand, having a nice map where you can have your players, you can show your players exactly where they were and how they got everywhere is great. It's a really great tool for like sense of adventure and looking back on everything that you've done. It's great. You were given some extra food before you left the Elven Forest, some bags of nuts and dried meats and like woven breads. So you've got food for, in theory, the rest of your journey, hopefully. We don't want to have to deal with supplies. Supplies are going to get in the way. It could be a real part of the world, like the bad maps. It could be a real thing that you have to deal with because supplies are a real thing people have to deal with. But also, like, we're nearing the end of our campaign. We're not trying to drag it out any longer. We don't need to play supply games. Let's give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room by saying... So you've got food for, in theory, the rest of your journey. Let's give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room if we want to decide something different down the line, but let's just keep the campaign moving. Hopefully. You're going to have to stop off and refill your packs with water. You wouldn't want to carry all the gourds filled with water until you reach a point where you're going to need it, because no one wants to carry an extra like 30 pounds or 20 pounds of water for no reason at all. So you'll be stopping off at the various creeks and rivers along the way here. And I would like Nick Greenzerg
I want you to roll
Here it
me.
comes.
He's fishing for a low
D20.
roll.
Yeah, he's fishing
He's
for
fishing
Yeah,
for
I
a
am.
low roll.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, there
man.
we go.
That's a nat 20.
That'll teach you, Neal, won't it?
That'll teach you.
It
Neal.
will absolutely teach me. I have to completely rebuild this encounter. So why don't we take a break and we will come back on the other side, and this encounter will be completely reversed from what I intended it to be.
Wait. Potato has a read real quick. Go ahead, Potato.
There's a link at the top of the YouTube chat that says www.patreon.com.
Go to
That's
Patreon.
awesome.
Yeah.
Expedition. Our expedition is moving across the plains.
So,
and as we're coming
the
across
encounter
these
that we're
creeks
coming
in which
across,
we go to get water.
we're just gonna jump to the encounter map. So the encounter that we've got going on here was originally gonna be the party is down at the river getting supplies, right? We had just been talking about stopping off at creeks and rivers to fill your gourds with water. The original idea was that the party is down here filling their water at the river, and these raiders come across the party, maybe from up the river, down the river. I think they were going to maybe come across from this high ground here, but we were going to have the party be in a spot where they're the ones getting ambushed. We were going to use the low ground here with the high ground on either side so that the party couldn't see the horseback raiders coming along, and then bam, the party's in like an ambush. They've been ambushed in an otherwise flat plain because they're down in a low area by a river getting water. That's why we were talking about gourds and waters and everything. But instead, Nick rolls that natural 20 on his perception, and now the party gets to ambush these people here.
Cliffs are pretty tall. They're 20 feet here. They're 20 feet over here. Down towards the edges over here, they're closer to like 10 feet.
And we're going to skip through this pretty quickly.
It's the average.
5, 10.
It should be more or
because
less structured.
this is combat, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's any rulings that are super important that we do here. We're going to kind of skip through it quickly and see if there's anything fun to talk about.
Need it.
Take it off your spell list. And
So the actual
Skippy. All right, people are making saves.
the wind
All right.
A lot of things going on.
to stand up. All
And I pull do it. Fuck it. I'm gonna fuck this guy up. I use my action surge.
Party's so excited to finally do something interesting because it's been a long session of role playing, but it's mostly been a session of the DM telling you, and the elves are like pretentious dicks. Maybe not the best session we've ever had.
It's like, you know,
We got to remember that play the NPCs. Playing the NPCs always sucks. If they're too useful, then the party doesn't feel like they're doing anything. If they're useless, then the party's annoyed with them and they're just taking up time. If they're very middle of the pack, it's kind of nice, but then it just eats up extra time too. Might as well just say, like, we're going to get rid of these NPCs and we're going to get rid of these enemies and they're going to have their own battle over there. All right. Party going forward. There's some, like, cliff climbing bullshit and nonsense. The rounds take a while. One of the problems with 5e, especially when you have a lot of participants in battle like this, is that each round does take a long time. And the movement's not that great. The movement range is not that great on characters. And so if you start a battle with people being multiple rounds of movement away from each other, it takes like 5, 10, 15, maybe even 30 minutes before you are engaged. And so if someone's coming and they want to come down the cliffs and it's a climb check and there's the storm happening and there's all this bullshit, then you might actually spend 2 rounds just trying to close with the enemy. And that just takes too damn long. I like high movement ability. That way everything closes pretty fast. It's hard to do ranged encounter, or spaced out encounters well in 5e. Any sort of combat system in any game where there's a lot of characters means that everything is going pretty slowly. Even if you're playing like XCOM and there's 30 people on the battlefield, it just takes forever for your turn to come around. It's a constant problem. Civilization does a pretty good job of having all of the enemy, like the enemy turn happens and everyone moves all at once. Not if it's a lot of people in the area at once. Total War also does a similar thing that's pretty good, where everyone moves all at once and you just kind of see all the armies shuffling around and then it's your turn again. Unfortunately, with tabletop RPGs, you can't just shuffle everything. You could just sort of wing it and be like, cool, it's these 5 guys' turn, and I'm just going to move these 5 guys. But then a party member might be like, wait, he overmoved. Or someone might say like, hey, they were undermoving. And if they're undermoving, you're giving the players an advantage. And if the enemies are overmoving, you're buffing the enemy. And it gets a little bit of a weird territory. And so if you want to do everything right so that no one's ever getting buffed or nerfed, it just takes too much time. There's got to be a solution out there for mass combat. The best solution that I've found is to put clusters of enemy on the same initiative, where you're like, these 4 orcs go together at the same time, and then the 4 orcs come up, and I just move them all together as a unit as best as I can. But lots of characters, open distances, open spaces, short movement range in 5e makes it a bitch.
Right. This time they have full deck saves, no disadvantage. The archer, they will this one.
Skippy. Players get surrounded. You know, these guys go up through the top. He finally makes his way down the hill, but he's not going very far. Enemies are using spells of their own, lots of areas of effect. But again, you've got clear lines on the map. You know exactly where the area of effects are. You know exactly how to get in and get out of these things. Too much information too quickly, but hey, the enemies have too much information too quickly too. It's fine. Not everything needs to be, you know, truly simulationist, old world, perfect info. Another one of our problems is that it's really easy to take down big bads from range. You don't have to deal with the minions. All you got to do is shoot the big bads. So that's not super fun. It would be nice if the big bads had a little bit more staying power. So you need to give them a lot of HP or a lot of AC or really good saves. But especially in 5e, they can be taken down pretty fast. And it's frustrating when your big bad caster just gets nailed really quickly. I think Ethan has like a dueling archer war with one of these people over here for part of this battle. There's a lot of saves happening. 12 razors. Is he finally getting somewhere? He's finally out of the range. Did he literally just... He spent a round getting to here and climbing down, and then he fell and ended his turn, and then this is like a slow zone or whatever, and he has to spend half his movement standing, and then he gets to spend the rest of his movement moving. He spent 3 rounds getting from here to fucking here because of the like slippery conditions of this spell. It did not go very well. What a boring combat for him. Meanwhile, Cypher gets in the middle of the battle, fucks up all these people, and these folks back here are doing some good things. But the movement penalties in this large combat can be frustrating. Skippy. The party wipes the floor with the planes encounter. We're just going to skip to the end.
I move to here, and then I use a 2nd level.
Yeah, it's horrendous. I'm going to use... Dude.
Fucking God.
Relics feed.
Yeah, it's horrendous. I'm going to use absorb elements again. Oop. So I'll take half. That's 12 damage.
12 razors is finally in the battle.
Absorb elements is abjuration, so it'll restore 2 health to my...
Well, also, you have a d4, and it might actually work. If you roll a 4, you will pass the save. Actually, if you roll a 3 or 4, you'll pass your save.
Oh, there
you go. Nice.
All right.
I'm taking 6 damage.
You will take 6 damage and no subsequent damage. And
all right, they get to the end. Was there something at the end?
Razor.
I mean, there's some slavers here. Now, this encounter that I had set up, because I knew there were slavers in the plains, is one that I didn't really want to set up. This was an encounter I kind of wanted to avoid, but we were getting towards the end of this session, and I didn't have a good other encounter that I wanted to run. The problem with this encounter, and we run into this next session, is that by the end of it, now the party has freed some slaves. Freed some people who had been imprisoned. Freed people taken captive. Now the party's responsible for these folks. And to be honest, they're getting in the way of the story. The story is the party's got to go to Heatstroke, but they've also got to be good because they're trying to, impress the ghost of good King Arnold or some stuff. But now you've got all these prisoners that you've freed, And now you've got to be responsible. Like you could, what are you going to do? Just let them go without any food or water? Give them the food or water that these other people had and just like let them march undefended through the wilderness by themselves? It's a pain in the ass. I think the right thing to do here would have been to, because the point of showing the enslaved people, the prisoners, the captives, was so that the party would know that these guys are bad. But we could have done it without them. The expectation was that the raiders were going to see the party and attack them. We did want to give some flavor. It's not just like random raiders you're coming across. There's something here. It's a band of, this is an old part of the world, and the party started off with some of their crew members getting captured and dragged off into slavery. And there were the slave pits that they found in the early part of the campaign. And technically, Drawlv Razors and Ciphers are slaves to Julia Farseer. And so the idea of, this Bronze Age great heroes and lots of people who own each other sort of motif is a constant in this campaign. And having it helps kind of flesh out what's the age of the world and what's going on here. So having the slaves here is useful for the big old story, but it gets in the way of the mechanics of moving the story forward, which is a bit of a bummer. I think we end up managing it with some sort of squinting and hand waving, and they'll be fine. And there's elves nearby, and he moves on. But that's going to be it for our director's commentary for this session. There are 2 more sessions to go, and we're going to do a quick just back to the world map. Back to the map. Great. So our party is now somewhere over here. They're going to go to Heatstroke. We've got 1 session of getting to Heatstroke, and I think starting stuff in Heatstroke. I can't remember. And the final session where they start in Heatstroke and finish everything off. Last 2. Hopefully, we'll get them done in less than a year. Hopefully, they'll be done by the end of the summer. That'd be great. And that's our short campaign. That's our short 16-session campaign. I thought it'd be between 10 and 15. Ended up being 16. Pretty damn close. This is a good one. I really did enjoy the Lazarus expedition. This session in particular had a lot of nonsense with the woods, which I think I didn't do super well. Not every session's a banger sometimes. Sometimes they kind of suck. I don't think this one sucked, but I think it was maybe not paced out as well. This session suffered from some pacing. The next one doesn't. And the one after that certainly doesn't. So we'll see you soon for some more director's commentary.